Hello everybody, my name is Michael and welcome back to Last the First. So we are back already again for another Grand Prix, and this time it is the Mexico City Grand Prix. Feels like just yesterday we were watching the United States Grand Prix, and we're back at it already. Part 2 of a triple header. I'm super excited for this next race. I think it's going to be an interesting and competitive one, and I have some spicy predictions. So let's get into my Mexico City Grand Prix predictions. Feels like it's been a little while since we've had a traditional weekend format, and when I was preparing my predictions, I almost instinctually got ready for Friday quali, Saturday sprint, quali, sprint race, and Sunday's race. And a little strange to have it back to normal, but certainly a lot less predictions that I can get wrong. But going into P3, I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. I think the Ferrari has been very quick in a straight line, particularly at Monza, and they were very quick in the US as well. I think he's going to do very well because of those straight line speeds, and obviously pretty much all of Mexico is a straight line, so certainly needs some fast speeds there, and I think he's going to do quite well because of the straight line speed of the Ferrari. And of course, Charles Leclerc is just an excellent qualifier and a very fast driver. Next up, going into P2, I am going with Lewis Hamilton. I think his form is going to continue on from the United States Grand Prix, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I think he's going to continue to do really well here. I think the upgrade will continue to work and go in the right direction, and Hamilton's kind of got some of his mojo back, so I think he's going to perform really well here as well. But P1, my prediction for pole, I've got to go with Max Verstappen. I think it's going to be tough to beat him, particularly in qualifying. Obviously, we know how quick that Red Bull is in a straight line, and it also has the highest downforce of any car. And interestingly enough, with Mexico City, since the elevation is so high, you have to run a very high downforce setup, even though it's almost all straight lines. The air is just so thin there that it makes for a very unique setup. But the Red Bull has the best of both worlds, and I think it's going to help tremendously and will help Verstappen probably be pretty comfortably the fastest in quali, but I think it is going to be a little quicker on the race for the race on Sunday. Just with fuel loads and general strategy and everything, I think it will make for a more interesting Sunday than it will for a Saturday. As you can see, I do not have Sergio Perez in my top 3, and that's just because I think just because this is his home Grand Prix, I don't think his problems are going to stop or go away. It's still the same car, still the same struggles that he's been dealing with, and I think he's going to continue with those same struggles. So I don't imagine Checo getting into the top 3 in qualifying. So going into my predictions for the race on Sunday, starting out with P3, I'm going with Charles Leclerc as well. I think he is going to hold on to his position in qualifying and get on the podium this weekend. Once again, I think that Ferrari is going to be really slippery in a straight line, and it's going to be tough to pass there as well because since the air is so thin, even with DRS open, it doesn't have much of an impact, or as much of an impact as it does with other tracks. Plus, just in general, these cars don't have as strong of a DRS as maybe they once did in the past. But I think the Ferraris are going to be quick, slippery in a straight line, and I think Charles Leclerc is going to get P3. Now, P2, I'm going with Lando Norris. I think the McLaren is still going to be right up in there. They've shown that they have the second to third fastest car week in and week out with different tracks, and I think it's going to continue to be that way. I'm sure the Ferrari will have a bit of a straight line advantage compared to the McLarens, but I think Norris is going to perform really well, and the McLaren is just going to continue to show that it's got genuine pace. So I think he will end up getting another podium and be in P2. Now here is where things go off the rails a little bit, and maybe I am on a bit of a hype train. However, I think P1, the winner of Sunday's race, is going to be Lewis Hamilton. Yes, I have said it. I think it is time that Verstappen has a true reliability problem and either DNFs or maybe just scores a few points. I think it is time. He had some issues with his brakes last time out, of course, and I think it is the universe's time to strike down some type of reliability for Max Verstappen and Red Bull, and I think it will make for quite the interesting podium. We've seen the high elevation at Mexico City have a pretty strong impact on cars' reliability in the past, particularly with engine overheating problems and brake issues. I remember I think Mercedes had significant problems with it several years ago, and if Red Bull were just dealing with some struggles with the brakes, then I think that might be amplified a bit here as well due to the high elevation and high temperatures. Speaking of the brakes there, that reminds me Aston Martin is probably not going to do super well as well. If they were having the brake problems, I could see them doing pretty poor this weekend. But yeah, I think Mexico City might strike up something interesting with the finishing order here. And yes, can we get a Hamilton win for the first time since 2021? Would be pretty crazy to see. But yeah, sadly enough for Checo Perez, I think he's not going to get on the podium in his home race this year. He did last year, but I think, like I mentioned, the home field advantage is not going to remove the problems that Sergio Perez has been dealing with. So I don't think he's going to get a podium, sadly enough, for Perez and his fans. Next up, looking at my masterclass of the weekend, I am doubling down and going with Lewis Hamilton. I think he will continue his momentum that he has going on from the U.S. Grand Prix, and the upgrades will continue to do well for him. Even if he doesn't win on Sunday like I'm predicting, I think he'll still have a great race and at the minimum be challenging for a podium. He really seems to have his mojo back, and he said that he feels that he can really lean on the car a little more and has a bit better feel for it, so that's definitely good to see. He has traditionally had a pretty mixed bag of results here in Mexico City. I mean, he's been on the podium, the P2, the past 2 years. But prior to that, he had a win there. And then he also had some pretty lowly finishes in like 9th and I believe 6th or 7th as well. So been a bit of a mixed bag. But yeah, I think the Mercedes are generally going to be really quick here. They're projected to be Red Bull's number one challenger. So I think the pace will continue on, and Hamilton will still have George Russell's number this weekend. I don't know that Russell will be as far off as he was last weekend compared to Hamilton, but I think Hamilton is still going to comfortably beat Russell, and that's why I think he'll be the masterclass of the weekend. Next, going into the disaster class of the weekend, and I almost feel bad for saying this, as well as for my bold prediction, you'll see. But I am going with Sergio Perez. I think when things go wrong, things really go wrong, and I think unfortunately for Checo, things will continue to go bad at his home race. As sad as that is for him and his fans, I don't think the struggles of him dealing with the car will be any better. It's still the same car, and I could imagine him qualifying not so well and getting tangled up in some midfield battles, whether that results in a DNF or just some serious damage to his car. I think something unfortunate is going to happen to Perez this weekend, as sad as that is. But yes, I think the pain will continue for Sergio Perez, and we'll finish out the season continuing with more pain after this race as well, if he has another poor weekend this weekend. Lastly, for my bold prediction of the weekend, I felt bad when I was creating these predictions, and I think I feel worse putting it out into the world. But my bold prediction is that Perez does not score a single point. Yes, I Feel pretty bad about saying that, but vibes are vibes, and I think it is all going to go disastrously wrong for Perez. I think this whole season has been a bit of a disaster for him, and I unfortunately don't think it will stop for him. Like I mentioned, I don't think he'll qualify super well, and I think that's just going to cause problems with him getting tangled up in the midfield, especially maybe right at the beginning at turn 1. It's so tight through that chicane section. I think it might cause some problems for Perez. But yeah, he got a podium here last year. Obviously, he's going to have all of the fans backing him the entire weekend, but I think he's in a worse place this year with the car than he was last year. So I don't think he's going to quite be able to pull a performance out of the bag. But we'll see. For his sake and the entire country of Mexico, I hope he does better than that. He definitely deserves it, but his run of form has not been so good. So I've got to go with my vibes and say that he is not going to have a good race weekend, unfortunately. So let me know what you all think of my crazy predictions. If I could be right with some of these this weekend, I think it will make for quite the interesting race weekend. What do you guys think? What are your predictions? Who's going to win? Who's going to get pole position? Will Perez be able to have a good performance? What do you guys think is the pecking order for this weekend? Be interesting to see. I am greatly looking forward to this weekend. I'll be able to watch the race live again. Helps being in the same time zone as the race. And then, we'll finish this weekend out and then back again next weekend for the Brazilian Grand Prix. But let's keep the momentum going. Let's keep the good vibes going. And yes, I will see you guys in the next one.